Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we bring you the latest news, information and analysis on what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now, many countries are looking at the effects of globalization, and large numbers of them are now dependent on crucial goods and equipment that they import from other countries, particularly China. And they're looking to solve these problems by what's called import substitution. Now, Russia is no different, and because of the sanctions that were imposed by the West starting back in 2014, it's had to follow a policy of import substitution. Now, this policy has worked across many sectors, particularly in food production, the energy sector, and agriculture, and they're good examples. However, according to the Russian Chamber of Commerce, Russia needs to reduce its dependence on importing of equipment in the manufacturing industry and the mechanical engineering sector. Plus, it feels it's essential to accelerate the development of component manufacturers. In fact, what they say is needed is a third industrialization. Otherwise, they say, there will be complete dependence on supplies from China, which has replaced the West, particularly Germany, as a source of equipment for this sector. Now, the level of import dependence in the mechanical engineering sector is around 30%, according to the Russian Chamber of Commerce report. Now, the report goes into the industrial development competitiveness of the Russian economy at the end of 2023. Now, the manufacturing sector accounted for 12.4% of the Russian economy's GDP. And that's an increase of 7.9% relative to what it was in 2022. So, that's significantly higher than the country's GDP growth over the same period, which amounted to 3.6%. And however, such impressive growth may be negated if the current economic policy is not adjusted, or particularly sufficiently adjusted. Now, according to the chairman of the Council of the Russian Federation Chamber of Commerce, Konstantin Babkin, in January to November 2023, the level of taxes on production and consumption in the budget increased significantly compared to the same period in 2022. Now, consequently, the VAT collection increased by 10.9%, income tax by 12.9%, federal income tax for corporates by 21.9%, and property taxes by 5.1%. Concurrently, the volume of collected raw materials taxes decreased, that's mineral extraction tax, etc., decreased over the same period. And revenues from these taxes were down by 11% and excise tax collections by 62%. Now, this means that the balance is falling on other sectors rather than the mineral sector, which are all making huge profits. Now, at the same time, industrial machinery manufacturers in Russia are now at a disadvantage relative to their competitors from China. According to the Chamber of Commerce data, the interest rate on a commercial loan for a Chinese industrial enterprise is 0.5%, while for Russians it's 12%. Also the average tax burden on manufacturing companies in China is 20%, while in Russia it's actually 37%. That's news to me, actually. I thought it was a bit lower than that, but I'm not in the manufacturing sector, so I suppose I wouldn't really notice until I did. Now, the result of this disparate conditions is preponderance of Chinese manufacturers of both components and engineering products in general being successful on the Russian market. Now, Konstantin Babkin, he cites the example of the production of electric motors, units without which the production of the majority of final mechanical engineering products can't actually function. In China, they produced 1.2 billion units in 2023, and in Russia, it was 9.8 million. Now, back in the days of the Soviet Union, right, even in 1990, Russia, they actually produce 46.6 million units of electric motors. Now, obviously the policy changed in the 1990s, and a lot of the companies closed down, etc. And obviously that situation has changed, and but the market hasn't. So it's basically imports only, and Russia needs to catch up. Now, obviously, moving from dependence on the West to dependence on the East is not a good idea. And Russia, having had success, really needs to look at how it can look at this manufacturing and engineering sector. Now, according to Nikolai Sodorenkov, who's the general director of a company called Lifting Machines, they make forklift trucks and that sort of stuff. He draws attention to the reduction in the supplies of KAMAZ trucks and increase in the number of trucks from Chinese manufacturers in the market. Babkin notes that in 2021, KAMAZ released over 35,000 vehicles into the market, while in 2023 the figure was down to 31,000. However, though, the volume in the truck market in Russia actually grew from 84,000 units in 2022 to 143,000 in 2023. But the majority of this growth was taken up by Chinese manufacturers, whose share is now 60% of the Russian market. Now, at the same time, Sidorenkov notes that Chinese manufacturers are not yet developing full service for their products in Russia. They don't have spare parts centres, and according to him, the materials used in the manufacture of products are low quality, and the products themselves have unsatisfactory performance parameters. So it's not something I've experienced, but it's something I'll certainly have a look at. Now, if you look at market trends, Chinese equipment still remains the popular choice due to its competitive advantage enjoyed by its manufacturers in terms of business conditions, price, costs, etc. Now, Sidorenkov suggests that an effective measure could be the introduction of an equalising duty of up to 30% on all imported components of automobile special equipment, as well as for imported cranes that are supplied separately and not as part of the specialist equipment. Furthermore, he suggests introducing a recycling fee on all of this type of equipment so that it's imported separately from the vehicle. Now, according to Vladimir Gamza, who's the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce Council on Financial, Industrial and Investment Policy, he notes that the Russian mechanical engineering sector is highly import dependent, with imports accounting for almost 30% of the sector. Right? I mean, that's quite a high figure. I mean, the figure is only higher in pharmaceuticals, which are at 50%, and the consumer goods sector, which is slightly lower at 35%. Now, according to him, to reduce import dependence, it's necessary to implement measures to support manufacturers of components in the Russian mechanical engineering sector. Now, the Russian Chamber of Commerce believes that in order to accelerate the development of this sector, you need to provide enterprises with benefits that are currently available to companies in the IT sector that's been heavily subsidized over the past few years by the Russian government as it looked to move away from the use of Western software. Now, that has yielded positive results, and if they extended it to other industries such as mechanical engineering and further along the technological chain, it would stimulate the production of small-scale and specialist production of steels and components, and at the same time ensure that the prices for Russian consumers are level to comparable to their cost of production. Now, it's also, according to Bubkin, that necessary to develop a program to modernise the factories that produce foundry equipment and promote the creation of foundry production complexes and mechanical processing of castings. I mean, the Russian government must ensure that domestic producers are not placed at a disadvantage compared to their Chinese counterparts. I mean, the country is well positioned for dynamic growth, and the key to success is obviously the implementation of effective economic policy. Now, according to the Chamber, a third industrialization program is required. And the development of the non-resource sectors of the industry will stimulate the growth of the economy, generate demand for scientific development, enhance the material well-being of the population, improve the quality of education, and address the demographic challenges. And that was from Konstantin Babkin. Now, according to data presented at the Russian Chamber of Commerce meeting, Russia's imports are primarily comprised of high-value goods. Now, almost 70% of all Russia's imports are these so-called high-value goods. Conversely, the composition of Russia's exports is predominantly raw materials, oil, gas, agricultural materials, fertilizers, etc. And they account for 70% of the exports. So you can see where the imbalance is. Now, according to the Chamber of Commerce, the need to invert this pyramid should be a major government priority. And their idea is to achieve this. It would be beneficial to implement a revised customs policy. I mean, it's not just about getting money, but it's about creating the environment for the development of individual industries. In industries that are essential, in the same way as they did for food production in 2014. I mean, that will implement a policy that will prevent the import of products that can be produced domestically or within the Eurasian Economic Area. And in terms of tax policy, you need to get off the burden of taxing the manufacturing sector to allow it to develop and to grow the businesses. I mean, ultimately, the manufacturing sector needs to grow, not decline. And budget revenues will increase if they create the conditions for the growth of production, and that will still lead to an increase in the tax base. So what they propose is reinstating investment tax benefit that was in force some time ago, which gave tax breaks for those investing large amounts into the investment into machinery and engineering. So monetary policy is currently looking at to cut the inflationary environment, but the Chamber of Commerce believes that that's actually having the opposite effect. The high interest rate leads to higher costs for loans, a decrease in production activity, stagnation of production, and a deterioration of the household income, and increased inflation. So the Council proposes amending legislation at the central bank at the first stage, and their proposal, it says, it will set the task of not isn't just tackling inflation, but of stimulating economic development and the growth in production. I mean, it's worth noting that several years ago in his address to the Federal Assembly, President Putin stated that it would be beneficial for the central bank to actually set such goals about economic development. So, anyway, despite its many successes in import substitution over the past 10 years, it does seem that Russia's still got a way to go to free itself from dependency on other countries for essential goods. Anyway, thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe. Don't forget to visit the website SCOBRICSInsight.com for many interesting articles about what's going on in the BRICS, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you for watching. Take care. Goodbye.